Just the voice. Okay, Sanbonani, Mangwanani, Molweni. Good morning. I'll play the American accent as well.
Sorry, it's not possible to dim the lights.
Dim the lights. Is that better? Just don't sleep, please. Okay, thank you, Tiko, Prof. Yamu, and Prof. Uganda Ochara for inviting me to speak today about something I'm very passionate about, and I think, unfortunately, Zahid has left in a hurry, but I think that was very fascinating and refreshing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you put the lights, please?
Can I put the lights back?
Yeah.
I'm going to press all the buttons. Is that what you want? Okay, the cameraman. The cameraman gets what he wants. I'm just setting myself.
Sorry. Is the lights fine?
We're now good to go, right?
Yeah.
All right, so first of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak about this. Please remember to tweet. This is the Open Innovations Conference. You can follow it now. How many of you on Twitter? Okay. And this is my hashtag. This is the UNISA hashtag, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. This is the Department of Communications, the minister's hashtag. And I mean, that's the hashtag she's running with. And we'll talk about it a little. And then we'll talk about the Open Innovations Conference. So if you're on Twitter, please feel free to do that. All right, so today I'm representing, I've got two hats. I work at the University of South Africa, UNISA. But I'm also working at NEMISA, which is a government entity focused on digital skills and the creative new media. And my talk today is about the fourth industrial revolution and digital skills, the urgency for open innovations. And as much as possible, I'd like us to interact, and I'll tell you why. Because when I looked at the titles, I haven't read all the papers, I was actually intimidated, okay? Because we've got nanotechnology, we've got computer scientists, we've got engineers, we've got public health, we've got robotics, we've got chemical engineering, digital government, Internet of Things, health. So the ability to bring all these streams together for me is very exciting, but also intimidating, because what do you teach someone who does nanotechnology? Or how do you teach, what do I say to someone who does digital governance? These are totally two different things, isn't it? So for me, to present a keynote was actually interesting. It presented me with a lot of some things to think about. But it also reflects the complexity in which we're living today. We've got a lot of things going on, and especially because of the advancements of technology, you find that there is a lot which is being cross-bred today. And that pretty much summarizes what I'm going to talk about. Okay. Just going to wind it this way and see my notes as well. So my question is, what is missing here? Let me ask. What is missing here? What did we not cover? What did Nixon overlook? What did Tiko overlook? Yes?
Transhumanism.
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 What do you mean by that?
Well, it's basically the ability that human beings can be improved. So it's sort of a hybrid of nanotechnology together with the Internet of Things.
Okay, so you want to improve human beings.
Yeah,
you want us to all have blue eyes, green ears, or
those
something.
things already exist. We've got humanoids, we've got
the perfect human being.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've missed transhumanism. Anything else? We've missed technology. Oh, you don't see it. Oh, you really have a good eye. Eh? It's somewhere there, if it's computer, there's technology. Anything else? Is there anything else that we could have missed?
Gender engineering.
Gender engineering.
Yeah.
So that you can be both a man and a woman.
What instead?
So you want to have people who are both man and female, so you can do your thing without having to interact with people. Actually, it's a trick question for me to ask what's missing, because what is the glue that would hold all these things together apart from Tico and Nixon? What holds, okay, because right now Tico and Nixon are holding us all together. We've got engineers in the same room as computer scientists and as information systems people. They are the ones holding us together. And beyond them, what else would be the glue to hold us together?
The human element.
It's the human element. Okay, what makes us human? Okay, and I think that is the most important that we should bring together. And I think this is fascinating, to bring such disparate streams into one venue, into one space, and to make them collaborate. How can they crossbreed with each other? And that's pretty much what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. Now, the term fourth industrial revolution is a very conflated, it's a bloated term, because everyone has captured it, especially the media. The media has taken this one and is making money out of it, including government and many entities. And the idea is, all these technologies are suddenly able to connect. And through this connection, our lives are so much more convenient. We were speaking with Gina earlier on, and she was mentioning how technologies are making decisions for us. And of course, because it's more convenient, it's easier to default to such technologies. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember how to navigate to where you need to go using a map. Do you remember that time? Do you remember? Yeah, so I had mastered that art because I was a taxi driver at the time, telling Nixon. I could look at a map and know where you wanted to go, and then I could figure it out. But with Google Maps, do you know what happens? What happens to everyone? When was the last time anyone used those physical maps? Do you even know what they look like?
The atlas.
Almost no one remembers what that is like. And in fact, when developing was still important at the time, we used to use F1. How many people know what F1 stood for? F1. If you know F1, you're older than 40. Yes, you're older than 40, clearly. Because to what extent do people use manuals anymore? Almost never. Everything is so interactive. So people no longer read manuals for the health files. People it's easy. And one of the challenges, of course, is that at one time I landed here, I was supposed to go to the Strand. And so I just got into the car, put into the GPS Strand, and I pressed start. And I didn't even check where I was going, and I ended up somewhere in Kailicha, I think. And I was wondering, what am I doing here? Okay. So I followed blindly what the computer was telling me. So what I'm trying to say is that all these technologies have made life so convenient, we're losing a bit of ourselves, okay? And I think that's not new, everyone identifies with that. So the fourth IR is a conflated term, like I said. It's been bloated, overused, misused, but something is definitely happening. Whether you like it or not, something is changing. And it came in through different names. There's the digital era, the Industry 4, smart living. There are all sorts of names for these things, but things are changing. And in South Africa, it's different. And unfortunately, with the media capturing the term, what's happening, what's the media? The media is all about selling newspapers. It's about selling news, isn't it? That's their primary focus. So if you're looking for good reports and good news from the media, you really have to be intentional. But what you get as default is sensationalism. So it is designed to attract the eyes and attract the attention. So and unfortunately, human beings are attracted naturally to bad news. Isn't that weird? We're kind of designed for that, weirdly. So these are the things which are worrying us at the moment. What shall we do now? The robots are taking our jobs, and in South Africa, it's a reality. I was asking Gina, is it the same thing happening in New York? You didn't actually give me an answer.
No, we've been talking about decisions instead.
Okay. So in South Africa, the reality is all these intelligent things are causing jobs to be lost. It's a fact of life. And on the other hand, new jobs are being created. But which are those new jobs? So the fear is that unless I'm a machine learning specialist or I'm a mathematician or I'm an engineer, I'm definitely not going to have a job going forward. And that's a huge danger. And that's one of the biggest dangers. So if we step back and we ask ourselves, how did we get here? So one of the questions that one of the ladies who, she wrote a very interesting book on open development, and that's one with Nixon. She talks about, these are the characteristics of society that shape the way we think. It's the fundamental question of who we are as human beings. Who are we as human beings? And what drives us? What makes us tick? What makes us wake up every morning? And so these are things which society, and today we are driven by a global economy. I'll talk about it just a bit later. What's the world about, and what should the world be about? What's the right way of thinking? These are ethical issues behind the things that shape society. And what's the purpose in this world, or what should be the purpose of being in this world? Now, when we think about it, this is what society is shaped by today. It's greed. Society generally looks at life. I mean, today the global economy. When we talk about a global economy, we're all connected to the internet. So we're kind of there's a societal ethos in the background which shapes the way we think. And if we look at this diagram, it pretty much tells us a lot of things that motivate us is to get up the ladder. And so this is what is shaping some of our decisions. How am I going to get a bit more money? How do I move to the next step in my career? How do I move from being a non-doctor to a doctor to a professor to a... After professor, what is there? I've seen institutions with a senior professor. I don't know how much further you can go beyond that. Maybe double professor.
Chair, Dean,
Chair, Dean, that's
down.
that's hard work. I respect Dean. No, that's a lot of work. So there's a global economy which is pushing competition. It assumes people as greedy, that you've got to take as much as you can in as short as time as possible. And this is what is kind of defining success. What's the danger with defining ourselves based on competition? What's the danger with that?
You lose yourself.
You lose yourself, what's that? Yeah. You kind of lose yourself. And this is a motivator, it's a very strong motivator for profit-making institutions. But is it a good motivator for human beings? The answer is yes, but it has its challenges. You kind of lose your family, you lose a lot of things along the way. So this is the global economy, I just mentioned that. It's pushing and driving most of our agendas. But it doesn't have to be that way. It determines what we identify as good. It determines what we identify as meaning. What does this mean? Am I going to get promoted or am I going to get not promoted? And it's unfortunately economic centered. So it's about the money, it's about the dollars, which is very dangerous. Now, there's a quote which I used from Joseph Stiglitz, which talks about the dangers of being economically centered. He says, we've created a society in which materialism overwhelms moral commitment, such that if your focus is on getting a paper out so that you can have more research output units, so that you can look good on your CV, so that you can become a professor or whatever it is, it changes what you are actually doing. Because the motivation is different. You may get the same result, but the motivation is different. So in which rapid growth that we have achieved is not sustainable, environmentally or even socially. If we do not act together to address these common needs, and what are the common needs in South Africa, or in Africa especially, we end up exploiting unwary individuals. Now, when you remember what Zahid was saying, Zahid was mentioning how the current design of wheelchairs is not necessarily beneficial. And I was actually shocked to hear that a wheelchair costs 150,000 rand. I didn't know it was that exorbitant. And it shows that if we're thinking only about the profit behind the chair, then it becomes unsustainable. But when we start thinking about human, or the human-centered design, then we may be able to create something different. But we as human beings, this is what we are designed for. Creativity and sharing, caring and sharing. This is what human beings are designed to be all about. Caring and sharing. Did all of you grew up in such environments? Yes or no? It depends.
Yes.
Some did, some didn't. If you grew up in a flat, you probably missed this. If you missed it, you can still do it, I promise you. There are many places you can do it, and it is very refreshing. Okay? So, the question is, how do we move from here? How do we move from here to here? What happened in between? It's a question. What happened in between? How did we move from here to here?
I think the political systems got into something, competition.